Good morning and welcome to our Black News. My name is Don Allen. I'm here with some distinguished individuals. Some show up every week, and we have someone new. To my right, your left, depending on where he is on your screen, and from San Diego is Mr. James E. King. Hey, Mr. King, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How's everyone today?
Well, so far we're fair to partly cloudy, but we're going to get into that. And my co-host here all the time, the mainstay, Mr. Anthony Scott from the Scott Collection. Hey, Anthony, how you doing?
Good, good, very good, good to you again, James. Have some other things to talk with you about, but yeah, a lot of things still going on in the city, so let's get it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, and you're going to hijack the show with the sports thing. I know. Okay, I'm prepared for it today. Uh, hey, and joining us, we have a special guest, someone who I did a show with on Thursday night. His name is Mr. Julius Hernandez, Director of Development for the Institute of Digital Humanity out of North Central, downtown Minneapolis. Welcome, Julius. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to
Yeah.
be back on
And
with you. So,
okay, cool. Let's get into this. I had titled the show, the phenomenon of Black celebrity in crisis because of the point that I was trying to make. Like, when these guys show up, what does that mean to Black America? What is that about for Black America? You have Jesse Jackson in the back there, Al Sharpton, America's Attorney General, Black Attorney General, Ben Crump. I mean, what is that signal? What is being sent? What message is being sent to the Black community? And how is this working out when, yesterday we had a 10-year-old kid in North Minneapolis shot, and I saw several different versions of this story. I saw 11-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid. So we're not really sure what's going on, but his uncle contacted me, reached out to me and said that he was in surgery and he was responding to sounds and the surgery went okay. And I haven't heard an update since then. But Anthony, let's just start. I mean, what the hell is going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul?
It's really hard to say. Don, I was really hopeful today that there would be a young man joining us on the program by the name of Jonathan. I actually hope Jonathan would be here because Jonathan has been on the national news. He's been on talking about Mr. Dante Wright, how he has mentored him. And when you talk about Al Sharpton, when you talk about Jesse Jackson that come here, and Mr. Ben Crump, he's everywhere now. I saw him in North Carolina. I don't know what to make of it because it seems like they come here and they're on a specific mission, but they're not dealing with the systemic issues that are causing these things. So, I mean, in a way, I don't want to call it grandstanding. I don't want to call it that. But I guess I have to question what the real motives are. As you say, Don, what's being accomplished? What's being accomplished by bringing the so-called heavyweights, if some people want to call them, of our community?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Julius is from the Twin Cities, or well, he's attending school in the Twin Cities or downtown Minneapolis. I mean, from a student's point of view, a college student, higher order thinking. I mean, when you look or see or hear what's going on in the Black community, this being our Black News, and we kind of focus to Black Minnesotans in general and our allies, of course, and we have a lot of allies out there, more than some can count. But what do you see going on as the root cause for all this craziness?
yeah, it's interesting. So my dad is black, my mom is Hispanic.
Okay.
I could, and I grew up in on the west side of Chicago, kind of, you know, comparable to North Minneapolis. And I would say, I just think that there's so many issues that we haven't dealt with in the community in terms of what's what's going to keep kids off the street, what's going to keep kids um, from resorting to gun violence, from resorting to, kind of these typical, um, you know, stereotypes about where we go after school, things like the school to prison pipeline. And so I think that there's a lot of core issues that we really have to deal with, um, before we can, before we really start to get down to the violence and sort of the, kids getting shot all the time, and North Minneapolis becoming a better place. And so I think it really just has to do with what are those core issues that we're not dealing with? What are the really, issues that are deep embedded in these kinds of communities, the ones that I grew up in and the ones that we're talking about right now. So,
Okay.
so I think that was, from my perspective, at least, that's
well, that's a good perspective to have, and it's always looking into the tunnel to try to figure out, the other end, how to get there. And systems can't arrange or fix themselves unless you have people in those leadership roles. This is just my quick opinion, and then we're going to go to Mr. King James. The system can't fix themselves unless you have people at the leadership level, politically, socially, wherever, out in the street, that can guide that process. And last 60 years in the Twin Cities, we've been talking the same stuff. You can tune in to any black talk show, especially the ones that get paid. You can tell all the ones in Minnesota that get paid, because whatever the flavor of the day is, they're talking about it. And that's good. I'm glad you get a check for that. That's beautiful. But James, out in your area, San Diego, and surrounding areas, and what you see in Minnesota, I mean, what's happening? Where's the issue that we need to be poking with a stick?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to be quite as generous as Brother Scott there, because they are grandstanders. And this is my point of view, and I can't say that I'm part of the mainstream, but when I see these guys show up, the first thing I think of that there's some type of sacrificial lamb in the vicinity, or maybe even more like Moses coming down from the mountain and seeing the people, reveling around this idol, because their idol, to me, when you look at the history of Jesse Jackson, you can go from Fat Al Sharpton to Skinny Al Sharpton, whichever you want. The message seems to be, if there's some type of money, or if there's some type of publicity, we'll be there. If it's part of the common problem, or getting things actually done, that's too small for their stage. And the thing that troubles me most is if someone that's grew up with them, my age, and I have distrust, how does someone like Julius feel when they see these same old curmudgeons getting up there with the same old message, and yet we're still stuck in the same old place, like we're walking in cement?
Yeah, I mean, that's the exact point of view that I think our lens that we need to look through, because when I see these guys coming, like the term African American, you trace that back to Jesse Jackson. Okay, that was his key phrase. And Jesse Jackson was the prominent individual going, showing up at all these things. Al Sharpton right there, doing his stuff. And Ben Crump is the new one on the scene. And it just seems to keep the evolution of that particular thing or phenomenon that happens in our black community. Now, I just know they took a lot of money out of here. I'm not saying who, what, where, or when, but besides the settlement for the police murder of George Floyd, the over $2 or $3 million, rightfully so, for his daughter, I think that was cool, and other things that came in. But what did they leave 38th in Chicago? What did they leave the black community? Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, Don and James, I mean, why are they being pushed then? I mean, why are they being foisted on us with all the airtime? They come in, Sharpton comes in and he preaches at all the services. He's the one that catalyzes. Why are they continuing to be pushed if they're coming in here and we're not getting any results from it? Whose fault is that? Who's putting them up there? Are the people putting them up there? Or just the news studio putting them up there?
Why are you letting them in? Why don't you, when they come in, you can say, okay, that it's fine that you're here supporting us, but you're here to support us, not to be us.
But what I want to say that having been here, that shows that there are no people here that are really trying to be a leader and saying, hey, you're coming into my territory. This is what we need in our area. And if you're not helping us with that mission, we don't need you. And I think I'm saying the same thing you're saying, James.
Yes, you are.
You're absolutely, you guys, you're right on point. And Julian, you can jump in at any time you want. This is an open forum for us for the people that are listening, and we thank our watchers on Twitter and on YouTube and on Facebook. We really appreciate it. But here goes the deal. Here's how I see it. Something like this happens in your city, okay? And you know that Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all these folks are out there, right? That they respond, kind of like ambulance chasers. You got to have a delegation of Black people at the airport, okay? That says, hey, welcome to the Twin Cities. Okay, we're going to take you to your hotel. We're going to have a meeting in the morning. You're welcome to attend, that we're dealing with this issue and figure out how you can work with us to spread information, but also help heal our community. But what we get is like, they fly in limo to the hotel, the best hotel room, and they start doing press junkets. They start going places, you know, and the press, the local, national just follows them around, you know, with the celebrity ship that happens. And the problems that could be solved.
But why aren't the media following around the people that are here leading, that are really doing it? And I think it's because here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I hate to say it, we don't really have any real leadership. We don't have any togetherness to say this is who we are and this is what we want. And I think that they come in and they can read the community. They can see that, okay, this is an easy one here. You know, this is easy win. And that's where we have to kind of put our heads together. And that's not only here, but in James, where you are in San Diego, the same thing. Where it is in Philly, where it is, we have to really step up and be leaders in our own community. And that's what I see is lacking.
See, whenever these guys show up, they take over. They don't work with. I mean, you know, when you look at the way, you know, and you know, I'm not, you know, that guy that, you know, civil disobedience and dogs and all that. But I mean, when you look at the way Dr. Martin Luther King operated, the first thing he did, he came in and he got with the local officials and the local people that were involved in the movement. These guys, when they come in, they don't get with the locals. They become the story. Elizabeth City, Louisville, any type of case where it was police reform or things like. But as far as, you know, like coming in the community and saying, well, hey, you know, like maybe we can establish an after school program. Maybe we can talk with you know, with the mayor and get this playground designated, put up lights so the kids can have, you know, some type of recreation, you know. And I realize, you know, we're also talking about black on black crime, but you also have to present somewhere. And I don't know whether, you know, I saw where you were using, you know, some old gang members, you know, around the George Floyd area. And sometimes, as I've spoken on this program before, sometimes you have to use that relationship within the community, because there's no trust in people our age when, if you haven't been there. You're looked upon as old folks now, and we don't have that appeal. And when you look at when you have your leaders following around celebrities rather than rather than taking front stage and saying, this is what we need for our city. We don't need for you to come in and do this, and then after the funeral is over, you're gone. No, we still have to live there. Give us something that's going to make a long-lasting impact in our community.
Actually, Julius, go ahead. Add to that if you have anything.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree. I think sometimes I get a little frustrated with people like Al Sharpton and Ben Crump and Jesse Jackson, because for me, and it's just kind of like what James said, it's the follow through. It's they're here until the funeral is over, and then they don't do anything after, and it's like, well, what is Al Sharpton doing for Minneapolis? What is Al Sharpton doing for Louisville? What are Jesse Jackson, what are Ben Crump doing for the city besides being here for that family, working for that money, and then just getting out? And so I think it's kind of what I was saying Thursday. It's the old establishment, people that they come in, they get the work done, and they go, and then they don't follow through with the city and say, like, how can we make meaningful change? Because it requires work. It requires them to actually, get their hands and feet in the dirt of the city and really figure out what's going on. And also to go back to the point of, they should be coming to the city and meeting with our leaders, but who are those people? I've been in Minneapolis 4 years, and I couldn't tell you who I could point to or what organizations I could point to that are leading the way and paving the way for serious reform in the city. And our city council in Minneapolis specifically, they try, but they're very bad at it, and they're also kind of hypocritical. And so all that to say, I agree. I think if you're going to just come and be here until a funeral is over, then don't come at all. Follow through with the city, follow through with the people. Even if you're not in the weeds, like, get involved with the local leaders and say, all right, how can we help you make some serious reform and change so that we're not having to come back to more funerals and more, events because, something tragic happened to another, minority here in the city. And so it's just, it's a little frustrating, and it's always like, I hate saying kind of get rid of the old guard, but there's people like you guys who really care about the follow through and the change that comes along with these events. And then there's people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson who've been doing this for 40 plus years, and they're like, well, we're just here for the funeral, we're here for the photo ops, and let me move on and find the next thing. So
I mean, that you're absolutely right. And ding, ding, ding on something you said. Julius hit the nail on the head about 3 minutes ago when he said if he would not know who to go to look for the leadership in this town. That's the problem. Okay. I watched Dr. Nakima Levy Armstrong, formerly Pounds,
in the room.
interview. I'm sorry. Why did you say that, Anthony? Okay, anyway, I watched Dr. Okay, I'm gonna straighten up. I'm sorry. I'm gonna straighten up. Okay, I watched this interview between Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Nakima Levy Armstrong, and I am very proud that she had that interview. That was a national platform that could be used for many things at that particular moment, other than personal celebrity rise. you know, and
Well, I
we
missed
get
that.
very,
I missed that interview.
oh, it's out there everywhere on YouTube. You just Google it and pop right up. But it was good, and I'm happy she did that. But if any one of y'all get a chance to do an interview with Oprah or anybody else, I know that you would bring that back to what we really need in our communities and with real talk. Not saying she didn't do real talk. Like I said, I'm very happy that that interview happened because it showed me what I needed to see and what was really happening in the city of Minneapolis and St. Paul and the state of Minnesota about how we move forward and we progress and keep paychecks coming. Okay. And I says, okay, that's a hustle. And then I listened to several other local minority-owned media outlets, their last couple of shows. And I understand that we have to do a certain thing in the Twin Cities, some of us, to appease this liberal faction that has led a lot in the Black community for a long time and damaged us beyond repair in some cases. But if you're beholden to that system, then there's no change. That's why Julius wouldn't really know who to go to. That's why Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Crump can come in here at any big police, white and black incident and raise the celebrityship, but also raise the value, not only for them and the family at the end game, but the media. The mainstream media who uses this. Listen to NPR. Read the Star and Tribune. When there's hot things going on the trials, they have the highest ad revenue coming in and the readership online and in print. The television stations, yeah, we want to sell some more spam, and we want to be right between the Crump News press junket they had and the Jesse Jackson statement. Put us right in there, 60 seconds. And so again, Black America, Black Minnesotans in this case, are being used economically and we get no damn benefit. How do you fix that?
Don,
Go ahead.
Don, can I just want to interject, Don? You know, you know, and there have been some callers to me about the show that have asked a few questions, but Don, you need to, you pound the Democrats. The Democrat that's as simple as a Democratic solution. But your Republican people, I mean, I gotta.
But wait. I'm gonna let you talk. But I didn't even mention.
No. Let me finish. Let me finish real quick. One of the avid listeners, he won't call in, but he wants to know. I mean, do you identify with Republican Scott? Do you believe Trump is still the president? Did you believe Biden didn't win?
Anthony,
is this a racist country, me. Don? Is this a racist country?
Of course it is.
Country? I don't know.
Of course it is. If anybody is calling you if anybody's calling you and asking you questions about me that don't have my phone number and can't call me and ask me the questions, it's like the stuff you hear about me might be true. Then again, it might be as fake as the bitch who told you. Okay, so. Let me explain this to you. I am a conservative. I have always been a conservative, but it's not about me. And when I talk about the liberals or the DFL or the Democrats, they're out there leading the way. They're the majority in the city council of Minneapolis, St. Paul, mayors, both cities. And what problems have they really solved for us? And you know what? The Republicans wouldn't do any better in Minnesota. Okay? I'm going to put that out there. I know that. But if we're going to get people in there, we have to get them in there based on their integrity, what they will do. I don't care if you're a Green Party, Independent, Republican, Democrat. If I feel good about who you are as a leader, as a politician, you got my vote. Period.
Yeah, well, I agree. That's how it should be.
I'm going to be a centrist. I'm going to be a centrist that leans to the right for the most part. But then again, I know a lot, like the Democrat, the pure liberal Democrat, Raymond Dean, former state representative. I could never vote for him, but I would support that brother all the way to anything if he wanted to run for mayor, general, principle, I don't care. That DFL person would always get my vote if I could vote for him. Period. Okay. There's Senator Roger Chamberlain, Republican.
Yeah, Don, I want to say that the
Mark,
question I was
go ahead.
asking. No, I was just saying those questions. I was asking for a friend. I was asking for a friend as an avid listener of the show and had some questions, and I thought I would pose those.
No, I'm just saying, man. You know what? What Scott said is out of the freaking ballpark. It's not a sense of reality. You got to understand where he is inside that GOP infrastructure. He's living real good right now.
The only
Okay,
one.
and it's a shame. Yeah, he's living really good right now, and he understands what he's in, that construct. And yeah, he's going to make those statements. We have made crazy statements on both sides of the aisles for the last, we've been there. Okay, so I'm not going to defend those statements. I don't have to defend those statements, but I don't agree with those statements. Yeah, the United States has a racism problem that has not been addressed. It's been pandered to, and it continues to have a racism problem and a prejudice problem and an inclusion problem and all kinds of economic problem. But they're solving it out of turn. They're not solving it in a way that it needs to be solved. And you know that, and I know that. So, well, James, what do we do? Julius, they're attacking the conservatives.
I mean, how do you, what do you mean it's been solved? I think that's a misconception. I don't think it's ever been solved.
No, I didn't say it was solved. No, I'm not saying it was solved. It's never solved.
Right. So, can we get, are we trying to get an answer before we're addressing the problem?
Yep, absolutely. You're right on point.
I mean, at some time, you can't, out here, like when they cut off a tree, you leave a stump. Well, I mean, you still had that space there that's being used for dead space. It's being used for something that's no longer going to grow. So, I mean, it's kind of the same way that we're addressing our politics.
Mm-hmm.
You can't vote for someone just because they have a certain label or a certain party. You have to look at what that person stands for. And I think, it goes back to when you bring the celebrities in town. Okay, well, now all of a sudden you're standing for, the old Civil Rights Act and you're beating the racist drum. Well, it's not that people don't believe that America's racist, but but we haven't found a way to address what it takes in order for us to break down that barrier. You're not going to, all of a sudden, because I take down the statue of Robert E. Lee, that doesn't mean all of a sudden that the town's going to become liberal and they're going to start throwing barbecues for black people.
Ding, ding, ding.
I mean, so, if and people are afraid to talk. And I think that's because we've been talking for so long. At least this is my perception. We've been talking for so long that we've become like the little boy that cries wolf. Nobody wants to hear that anymore. You have to address the wolf. I guess you guys got an inside joke there, but to me, this is the elephant in the room.
Okay. I hear what I agree with you, James, Julius, and Anthony, and it just and I'm in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, surrounding areas and suburbs, and that's where I kind of point the laser to. And if you critique something, it means that you love it and you want it to be better. And it's the Ramsey County, as you know, Anthony, they shut down Boys Totem Town. And we don't know, a lot of us don't know, someone knows where the money went. And you know what? I'm at the bottom of the food chain and all this, but I asked folks, I says, hey, do you know what happened to the financing behind Boys Totem Town in Ramsey County and St. Joseph's over in South Minneapolis? They're off 46 in Chicago, that 12 acres of land and that beautiful rustic wood building with the beautiful antique gym that is just like, it's gorgeous. And it's just Hennepin Schools. I think they either purchased it or they're putting a bid in for it to make it a charter school. And so those two very important places for our Black youth are wiped off the map. I'm not saying you should need a totem town. I'm not saying you should need a St. Joseph, but where are the kids that those agencies serve being served? They did not go away. And it goes to your point, James, that you said you could take down Robert E. Lee's horse and statue, but stuff still doesn't go away. We have that phenomenon in pandemic here in Twin Cities. The kids and the adults want to change names of high schools. They want to change, take down different things. Like they tore down the Christopher Columbus. I'm cool with the Christopher Columbus statue being toppled. I'm cool with that totally. But what does that change? Is whatever made your reptilian brain do those items, do those things, did they change the circumstance which you were originally upset about? Did racism disappear? Did burning down buildings make the police stop killing Black men after George Floyd? No.
Well, John, no, of course it is. But here in the Twin Cities, now what you're saying is, why is the continued erosion of our community? Yeah, we can just trace it to, as we've said, going back to the days of Mr. Ron Edwards, who I wish was here today, going back to closing Minneapolis Central School, Minneapolis Central High School, which was the heart of the South Minneapolis community, going back to closing the after-school program that Mr. Bobby Lay ran for years at Sabathani Community Center, which was the old Bryant Junior High School. I think you attended that, Don. And so
yes,
you tear down these things. Everything we do, you tear down. And it's only people like the great Jonathan Mason who will contest with Ed Graff. You should see something on the access station where he actually went to the school board and confronted Ed Graff about what's going on. And this is what we need to do as a community, is say, why would you close a school like that? Why would you close? There's no schools in the Southside community whatsoever. And they wonder why. This is the one. Now it's the highest crime rate after 55411 because they closed schools there too. Yeah. In North Minneapolis.
Julius, I'd like to get your take on this. Like, why aren't more young people getting involved, and why aren't more people, young people, in positions of leadership? I mean, like for instance, this panel. I mean, you got three old curmudgeons here, and I mean, what impact did? What impact?
I'm 39.
Well, okay. Well, I'm 29. I'm Jack Benny, but but Julius, what will it take to get your generation involved in this? And is it because of that there are no people your age, or is it because as Don and them are talking about the closing down of schools in certain areas? How do young people address old problems in a new era?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a that's a good question. That's a deep question. I think there's a lot to it, but I would say the first thing, and me and Don and Annie, who was on the show on Thursday, kind of talked about it. The first thing is removing the old guard when it comes to places like our legislators, when it comes to places of influence in the country, like um, running for office, city council, things like that, where it's like there's been an institution of old ways of thinking for a long time, and I think that our generation is like excited to be a part of making change in the city, making change in the country in general. But I think that there's a lot of barriers to, and even Don said something like this, and not just for reference, he said, it's about experience, et cetera, which is a good point, and it's true to an extent. But there also has to be like, there shouldn't be this way of proving yourself by doing this and that. You should just be able to kind of, if you have good ideas, surround yourself with people who know what they're talking about, and then just move forward with those things. And so I think one of the things is, it feels like for my generation, I'll say this specifically because I've been involved in politics for a couple of years now, it feels like we always have to wait our turn in line. But when we're waiting our turn in line, the people that are in front of us aren't doing a good job, and they want to sit there for 20, 30, 40 years and just collect a paycheck. And so I think there has to be a point where, people, my age, and then other people, that are older and kind of have seen the world in a different light, come together and say, all right, like at some point we're going to have to pass the baton. Let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you what I've learned. So when it's your turn to step up to the plate, you have the experience that we're talking about. And then, making sure that people aren't sitting in places too long. And I would say about my generation, I think, how do we get people involved? And I'd be honest and say, I think this really comes down to party line stuff. Like you guys are talking about tearing down statues, it's not making a difference. But that's what we hear the leaders of the country and the leaders of our cities saying. We need to tear down this racist institution. We need to take down this statue. We need to change the name of this school. And then we think, oh, okay, well, we can't see it anymore, so let's just ignore it and like it never happened. And we're just going to keep doing our thing. But it requires work to really get down to the issues, to really get down to the deep-seated problems. And I'll be honest and say, like, a lot of the white liberals that are my age don't want to be a part of that. Like, if I tell one of my white liberal friends, hey, why don't you move to North Minneapolis and start investing in that community? Are you going to do it? Odds are most of them are going to say no. And so it's like, we like to look as if we are fighting for, these issues, that we're fighting for these problems. But until we really pressure people into saying, okay, don't just look on Facebook like you're doing something because you're at a protest. No, go move into those communities. Don't gentrify, but move into those communities and invest in them with your money, invest in them with your tax dollars, invest in them with your time and your energy. And then you can really sit here and start talking about these issues on a deep-seated level. And I just think we have to start pressuring people my age and to stop thinking that just because we can't see the issue that it's not there anymore, and just because we annex a part of the city that somehow that's going to be a better place. It's like, no, we need to really look at what the issues, deep-seated issues are, and say, okay, don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. Like, go and be a part of those issues and find a way to contribute to them, big or small. And I think honestly, I would say too, with our education system. Our education system is just a cesspool of, hey, and for most of it, not all of it, but is a cesspool of, hey, like, this is what's going on. If we can't see it, we won't have to do anything about it. But like, I think teachers need to start teaching kids real world experience about, you need to go into these organizations and do stuff, because if you just sit here and talk about it all the time, you're just gonna be a philosopher. You're not gonna be a doer, and there's a difference. You know what I mean? So I just think all that to say, young people need to be forced into and pushed into those organizations and those communities to really understand what those things are about, and then coming alongside the old guard, quote unquote, and saying, we want to learn from you. We don't want to kick you out. We want to learn from you. We want to learn your wisdom. And then when it's our turn to step up to the plate, we know what you guys know, and we can figure it out from there, and change, some things around.
I think that's beautiful. That's a beautiful perspective. But I'm gonna have to. And I'm not taking anything away from it, but let's look at the current situation in Minneapolis and St. Paul with the black leadership or the self-appointed leaders. There are state, county, and city entities that pay a lot of these folks that are out in the street money to do something in our community. That is how they make their yearly income. And I'm not mad at them. You got to eat. You got to work to eat, okay? And you got to work to have a house. I understand that. But they are compromised to the point of you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you, right? Never. You learn that in the military. You can go bite the hand that feeds you ever. And so they're stuck in an area of purgatory where the celebrity ship is what they ride off of because it gives them other opportunities. And I'm not saying they're doing it out of bad faith or even good faith, but that's where they're slotted right now in this particular world. And that's where they make their money. Each of us here on this screen and everybody that's watching this show has a particular slot that they do, things they do to survive. They have to do. You have to get up and go to work at the daytime or the night shift. You have to eat 2 or 3 meals a day. You have to spend time with your family if they're all in your house with you. You have to connect with, you got to put gas in your car. You have to get a car if you don't have a car. You got to take the bus if you have to take the bus. All these things we have to do. And now I'm being a little bit of a philosopher, Julian. I know that. But can we have plans on paper that show the structure of this change that we want to do? If we want to get to point A to point B, we need to have people that are visual spatial, that see systems, that understand how to take North Minneapolis off the map of the worst area in the state of Minnesota. Okay. How to get 7,000 people in that area jobs to bring the unemployment rate down to the white unemployment rate in Minnesota. And every one of us here has fought and done this. Okay. I did it, written down, took notes, and it's too right for the mainstream that's in power right now to do something right. The mayor of Minneapolis would never say, hey, Don, James, Anthony, Julius, I heard you had this idea. Can we sit down and talk about starting up or restarting the neighborhood youth corps, where every kid 14 to 21 in the city of St. Paul, Minneapolis had a full-time job in the summer, and during the school year, if they could find jobs in their school that would benefit them. Okay. Our crime rate was so low among those youth, because if you're working out cutting lawns for people in South Minneapolis, St. Paul, all over the city, if you're putting wood chip trails down the Mississippi, that's hard work. That's work that gets you tired, and your reward is your paycheck. The Skyway Theater, Anthony, downtown Minneapolis in the 70s, you can see all the kids there for Jaws, because we all had checks, we all had money, popcorn. I mean, they wiped that out. And they were expecting the kids to survive as adults, basically. So they took that economic piece off the table, which pushes Black Minnesotans further back into this abyss of nothingness. And I'm not saying we're victims. I'm just saying that we keep voting these same people in. Inexperienced, they're not visuospatial. They can't track a system if you paid them and showed them, okay? And for some of them, it's their first full-time job with benefits. And they're green. I'm not saying that Julius couldn't get in there and run Ward 5 perfectly, a well-oiled machine, because of his age. I'm saying that he has the acumen to do that, whereas these young people, some of in his age range sitting on city council, do not have the acumen in Minneapolis or St. Paul. So that's just one of the problems. And when you're getting checks for 100 grand, 250 grand from the city of St. Paul or the city of Minneapolis, and for your Black organization, I call it Black Control, and you're going to schools to meet with Black youth, especially boys, men, well, they're not men, they're boys, and you're buying pizza and then taking them to the gym to play basketball, that's cool, but where's the academic piece in there? Where's that life skill piece
Well,
in there? I mean, you can learn life skills on a basketball court. Yeah, you
well,
can.
Don,
Go ahead.
you've hit it. No, you've hit it. I mean, the comments, hearing from Julius and for James to ask Julius, how do the youth feel? How do they feel about how this is going? Because it's going to be their world. I mean, we know, Don, in the Twin Cities, that our black well, if you can call them leaders or whatever, they haven't done anything. We have generations of people that have supposedly been doing things since some of our leaders left, and there's nothing happened. And so what the young man said was really key when he said that white liberals really don't want to be a part of it, even though they say they do. And so when I think about it, I think, well, maybe it's because they think maybe they have something to lose. Maybe they'll lose their spot if they let us come in. See, we have to have our own strategies as we've had in the past to succeed. If we don't do it for ourselves, how does it happen? And here in the Twin Cities, when you don't have, I see we have now, I saw some new leadership in the Urban League and NAACP. I think they have some young leadership at the end. But what do those organizations really do? I mean, do they have a real foothold in the Twins area for blacks? Can they get up and do things? I don't see us really. I just see us being continue to be victimized here, and these disparities becoming the worst in the country. How did this happen, Don? It's almost overnight. It's almost overnight.
Yeah.
We've gone from one of the best cities to one of the worst.
I have to disagree with you on one thing, or maybe this is the problem as far as I'm concerned. We have to stop seeing ourselves as victims. We have to get out of this victim mentality. We are a part of a system that makes us unequal. That doesn't make us victims, because victims, I mean, let's go back to the beginning of this country. They felt they were victims of the English, so they rebelled. Now, rebelling doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take up a gun. It doesn't mean that you have to burn your house down because you want to get back at your landlord. But there are other things that you can do, especially in today's modern era. Going back to Julius, and the digital, when you talk about digital humanity, you talk about protecting your intellectual property. We have to stop giving our knowledge and our money away. We have to start bringing it back and keeping it in the black community where it can do us some good. Don, I mean, to a kid out there that has a gun, if I can get him to trade that gun in for a basketball, if I can get him to trade that gun in for a keyboard, the education part, the most important part is getting him off the street. We can find something that will appeal to him once we get him within this structure. But the most important thing is to make him see that he can take advantage of the structure. As I tell people, when they passed the 3-strike law, I already had 4 strikes, but I was able to take my street knowledge and put it into something that made me feel, like you say, Don, I had to earn a living. So I turned to being a chef, which it still enabled me to be independent. I was still able to be creative. I was still able to use that knowledge that I got from the streets and put it to good knowledge within the community. But the first thing I had to do was to get out of that street mentality and find out, where is my niche in life? If my only niche in life is to carry a gun and look good to my peers, then you have to find something that appeals to me intellectually, that is not that is going to use the talents that I have, not try to change me, but to try to incorporate what I know into something that is needful and fulfilling.
Right. And I'll just jump in really quick because I did have a quick thing to say about this. I think too, I would say, one of the things I found interesting over the past couple of years as I've looked into more kind of how much are our representatives making, how much are they, how much allowance do they get for certain things. I think like even in the city of Minneapolis specifically, our council people make $110,000 a year when Philippe Cunningham's district, the median income is less than $30,000 a year. And so, no hating on him. He's making a nice paycheck, but it's also like, man, you got $110,000 a year, and the people in your community don't even get a fifth of that. And it's like, hold on, what is going on? Like, how can you claim to represent me and you're making $110,000 a year? You're not struggling like I'm struggling to get to. You know what I mean? I'm like, and even our U.S. representatives and senators are making $173,000 a year. I'm like, well, hold on, the U.S. median income is $31,000, and for Black and Brown Americans, it's even less than that. And so I'm like, how can we? And James said a good point. Like, we need to at some point start investing in our own communities with our own money, because if they're just going to go and make a nice paycheck and not do it for us, there has to be some sense of accountability there for ourselves. And so, I think that was a good point you made, and even bringing up the money, because I'm like, hold on, man. Like, if I'm going to make 110 grand being a city council person, I better be making some serious change. And if I'm not, then someone needs to say, it's time to go. We're not paying all these tax dollars, and you're not taking my $20,000 salary that I make for the year to just use it to not do nothing and sit on the city council. So, or sit, at the U.S. Capitol and live life right. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, that's also one of the things too, is like, I'm not hating. Like, I really would like a nice paycheck like that, but I'm also like, hold on, like, let's rethink the way that we are compensating the people who represent us. It needs to be like a sales job. Like, you get commission off of how many bills you pass that actually have some serious change. Because if not, you shouldn't be there. End of story. So,
yeah, and they would be broke if it was on a sales thing. They would be hurting. Like, hey, anybody ever sell cars? I sold cars, and the dealership would give you $600 a month. It was your duty to sell 3 or 4 cars to get enough commission to get a check every week that was $2,500 or $3,000 every 2 weeks take home. And if you did not sell any cars, all you would get was $600 a month. Now, I sold some cars, but anyway, that construct would be great, because then they would be responsible for doing something, and they're not doing anything really right now. That the Ward 4, Julius, if you're a Ward 4 constituent, send me an email at ward4@minneapolismn.gov. You should write that down.
Yeah, I just copied it. I'm gonna send it to myself.
Okay, yeah, that's a good person right there. She's a real good person. Good people, totally, 100%. So anyway, looking at this and where we left off, where's Anthony? Oh, there he goes. Where we left off was that we understand that, when people run into Al Sharpton, people run into Jesse Jackson, Ben Crump, Governor Walz, and others, we don't ask for anything. We never ask for anything. And I think that's one of the things that we have to close. We have to say what we need. And the infrastructure here in the Twin Cities, to me, has been that we are now pushed to the side, kind of second-class citizens at the state legislature, at the city councils, and other places that they say, like Julian said, like everyone here said, they say they're going to do this. They say they're going to address it. And there's a bunch of meetings. But yet we still have a couple dead Black guys at the hands of our community and the police after George Floyd, after Jamar Clark, after Tysel Nelson. We have all these things, these strings of things that keep happening over and over again. You get the uprising, the protests, you get the buildings burnt, you get a few people in our community that will get what I call Negro wealthy, a big check to do something in the community for a short time until the next thing pops off. Now we have the next thing that has popped off. We have a 10-year-old at North Memorial who was shot last night, driven in a car, not an ambulance, to the hospital. And we don't have much more information than that. And I don't see any movement out of the NAACP, the Twin Cities Urban League, those people that should be on point informing us. But what I do know is that there are individuals in our community that are in contact with the family, and not because they care, it's because they are the local versions of the Al Sharptons and Jesse Jacksons. Okay? And they're not doing it to benefit anybody but themselves. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that that happens, but this is what's going on right now. And
Well,
so,
why do you say right now? I don't understand why you say this is what's been going on.
you're
This
right.
is why this is why we don't have any faith in these institutions anymore, because they've been telling us the same thing since Martin Luther King died.
And James, but see, this James is getting worse. See, James is getting worse. That's the thing that is really the tipping point. It's getting worse. This is what the young man here is saying. He sees this. He sees this as a young person coming up, that it is getting worse. Now, here in Minneapolis, there's going to be a big vote on defunding the police and coming up with a whole thing called the Department of Public Safety. Okay, so they're going to try to overhaul this whole thing. It has no plan. It has no community involvement. Nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows who's that's going to cover. How is that going to improve things? But that's going to be, there's a real push, and they have the money and they have the votes to put that on the ballot coming up in November. So we really have to be vigilant. And we have to get people like the great Jonathan Mason. We have to get people that are not going to stand it anymore. We have to people with straight pressure to go ahead and try to get these things done. And so when we see this voting of defunding the police and coming up with public safety, well, what does it mean? I mean, does anyone know how that's going to affect us? Is it going to be better?
Why don't you send delegations to cities where this has worked? Send a delegation to Camden, New Jersey, where this has really worked. Don't just talk about what's happening. Go somewhere where the plan has worked.
Research.
Go somewhere.
Sure.
Of course. I mean, you can Google how many times a celebrity dribbled a basketball. You can Google how many threes Steph Curry threw up last night. You can't Google. I mean, come on. I get frustrated when I talk about this because
James, each community is different. Each community has a different makeup, and things should be structured to the community that people are living in.
All right, then
we see what others are and learn. But
right, I mean, it doesn't mean that you have
somehow part of
it. It doesn't mean that you have to copy that part, but you can take some of the parts that works for them and incorporate it into what works for you.
Yeah,
that's true. Go ahead, Julius.
Yeah, just real quick. Even to Anthony's point of, we got this bill that's trying to get on the ballot to defund the police. I'll take it back to this is the same thing I'm talking about, where young people and white liberals, they get on this high of like, we need to change something, and then they put something on paper and say, this is going to work, we're going to get rid of a police department. And I'm like, slow down. Like, let's just slow down and figure out, like, for another city that might work, but for Minneapolis, we're back to Murderapolis rates. And who's screaming the most on the city council? Who's screaming the most on the news? It's white liberals who don't want to be in those communities where police are keeping gangbangers from killing people or keeping, violent people from killing kids again. It's like, hold on, like, the police system isn't working, all right? But we don't need to get rid of them because what's going to come in its place? Like if someone comes up to my house with a gun, I don't need a mental health worker being like, everybody just calm down. I'm like, oh, you better put a cop on my doorstep to tell this man to calm down. But like at
Bust
the
the
same
cap in his ass.
yeah, bust the cap in him because I'm like, oh, I'm not like a mental health worker is not going to help me, but it might help someone like Anthony was saying in Camden or in Baltimore, where they might have a different system set up for the people that live there and the way it works over there. But here it doesn't work. It's not going to work. And it's like we can let people get in our heads, but we're like, the people outside of the city are screaming the most, and the people inside of the city are saying, let's slow down and put something on paper. Let's have a plan in place, and then let's start doing stuff. And so I just wanted to say that because you brought up defund the police, and that really gets me on a high horse there.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Hey, Julius, James, and Anthony, we're at the bottom of the hour. I'd like to thank you guys for joining me. I think we did have an in-depth conversation that could have went on for another hour easily. And we might have to have a special report one of these Saturdays and run it to 11. But you've been listening to Our Black News. And if you live in the Twin Cities, Google Police Shot Spotter and look at all the shots in Fairview Park last night and in North Minneapolis. Okay, we're going on 2 or 3 years with gunshots in North Minneapolis every day. And I don't think the political folks have the capacity to understand. And we're willing, us four here are willing to join and help out in any solutions at the same level that you're putting out hundreds of thousands of dollars to these nonprofits that have not done anything, because we got to get paid too. Okay, bottom line. And obviously your solutions are not working, so you're going to need to do something else. With that said, thank you for listening to and watching Our Black News, and have a great weekend. It's beautiful outside.